In a recent video, I showed you how I poured molten aluminum inside of a seashell, capturing the amazing spiral structure hidden inside. I used aluminum for that casting, but many of you asked if I could try it with other metals, so in this video I'll be experimenting with pewter, copper, and bronze. It'll be really interesting to see how well these shells hold up to different temperatures, ranging from 350 degrees Fahrenheit to over 2000 degrees. The first step was to make sure that the shells were as clean as possible on the inside. I started by drilling a small hole at the bottom of each shell. This made it much easier to wash out the inside, but more importantly, it'll allow the liquid metal to flow all the way down to the bottom. When I was done washing them, I made sure to heat the shells in the oven for several hours to be certain that they were completely dry before attempting to fill them with molten metal. In order to properly fill the shells with metal, I made a simple sand mold for each one. I won't go into detail about how I made these molds because I talked about that in my previous video. If you haven't already seen that one, I recommend checking it out. I filled the first shell with pewter. Pewter has a melting point of about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's so low that I was able to melt it in a steel pot on a camping stove. Once it was completely melted, I scraped off the impurities that accumulated on the top and then poured it into the shell. I let it cool down for a while and then I opened up the mold to see what the shell looked like. Unsurprisingly, the shell looked pretty much unaffected by the heat, however the pewter did flow all the way down to the vent. Now all I had to do was remove the shell without destroying the casting. I tried breaking it off with a hammer, but that did almost nothing. I'm amazed by how strong this shell was. The best way to remove the shell was just to dissolve it in vinegar. I thought this would maybe take a day or two, but it actually ended up taking 10 days and 3.5 gallons of vinegar. This one came out really nice. The shell was able to withstand the relatively low temperature of molten pewter, which resulted in a very smooth finish. Next, I melted some copper. I was a little bit apprehensive to pour 2000 degree metal inside a seashell that was in a confined space, and as it turned out, those feelings were justified. At this point, I was pretty much certain that the casting was ruined, and I wasn't sure I wanted to try again with bronze. I was really surprised to see that the copper made it all the way down to the end of the shell and that the casting was all in one piece. As you can see, there's a big difference between how the temperatures affected the shells. After being heated to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, this shell just practically fell apart when I touched it. To clean this casting, all I had to do was place it in my ultrasonic cleaner, and that pretty much took care of it. After seeing the results of the copper casting, I decided to go ahead and try the bronze. Bronze has a slightly lower melting point, but not by much. As expected, the molten bronze spattered as well, but this time I was a little more prepared for it. And just like the copper, this casting actually turned out pretty well. Here they are after removing the shells. You could see that there's a big difference in surface finish on these, but isn't it amazing that these shells held up as well as they did? At this point, all that was left to do was to cut off the excess metal and then spend several hours filing and cleaning up the castings. I found this little piece in the bucket of water that I cooled the castings in. I'm not really sure how it broke off, but it was easy enough to just solder back in place. I think these turned out really cool looking, and I'm glad I gave it a shot. The symmetry and uniformity of these shells is truly incredible. And let's take a second to appreciate that these things were made by living creatures. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please let me know what you think in the comments and subscribe for future projects. Thanks for watching.